welcome back to the Photo Op Podcast. I'm Stuart Marlantis.
And I'm Ben Lucas.
And we're switching it up a little bit today. Me going first.
Tasty. Yes, welcome to the Photo Op Podcast. We talk about all things photo and video. So we are starting off our new season here in the new space with listener questions. So today's question comes from Kyle. Kyle asks, when you're doing professional headshots, when do you use a white background versus when do you use a dark background? Ooh, interesting question. I do way more headshots than you do. But rather than me talking to myself, do you have any thoughts or input about when you would choose one over the other?
Sure. When you choose a white background when you want pure white, and a dark background when you want pure dark.
Ooh, that is deep. Philosophical. I like it.
I like 18% gray with RGB splashes, actually. So, this white and black stuff I'm not into.
I'm inclined to agree, actually. A 100% black background is bad, dark gray or white. But that said, I really think it comes down to, one, ask your client. Two, if your client doesn't know or doesn't care, ask what the intended use is. Because if the intended use is something that is going to be more editorial, like a magazine, maybe you want to go a black background with kind of more dramatic lighting. If it's something that is like professional headshot for a website where they're going to be on the site with many other people, maybe you just want to stick with clean white. It also depends, who is the person and what kind of persona are they trying to attract? Because of course you can always get a smiley or a more serious shot on either one, but I would be much more inclined for the white background to have the upbeat, joyful, happy ones versus kind of more serious, like dramatic actor, here's the cast bill. You're probably going to want to shoot that on a darker background. Also experimenting with environments. Just making sure there's something clean back there. It doesn't always have to be on a studio sweep, but yeah, that's kind of where I would approach it. Or do both.
Or do gray and light it and change your camera settings so it can look either very white or very dark.
This is legit my triple click setup. You get a colored backdrop, a black backdrop, and a white backdrop, and I have changed literally nothing except what lights are aimed to where. So you can be super extra and have a setup that takes you 6 hours to set up and tear down and do that.
So the answer to white or black background is
yes.
Neither, different lights.
Yeah, if you could only afford one, I'd honestly go with a medium gray because you can neon blast it with light and get white, or you can just flag it to make sure no light touches it and get black, or anywhere in the middle.
I would say if you really had to do black or white, from my perspective, white, but really gray.
Yeah, no.
Gray's the real answer, but like if you are only picking black or white is more useful.
Yeah, I think white in general, unless there's something specific that you kind of want to do, like we talked about with the actors, or if it's just this is an attorney's office and they're trying to look really powerful people, or like magazine editorial stuff. I think I blathered about that for a while. Thank you, Kyle, for the question.
Thanks, Kyle.
So what topic do we have coming up today?
Well, we are 2 years into 2 weeks of lockdowns. So
oh, man. This has been the longest March ever.
So we're talking about COVID, like everybody else is, but specifically COVID as it relates to the photographic industry and how it has changed.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, I will start by saying the just kind of lockdown on people getting sick, people losing work, all of the different reasons why people are not going in and things are not getting made is leading to the lack of microchips, is leading to the lack of camera availability for those of you who are trying to replace or buy new stuff.
Boy, Sony right now, they have cut like new product lines entirely. They've just stopped manufacturing them because they
Canon announced that they're not going to have flagship DSLRs anymore, which
crazy.
Essentially, we joke a lot on this show, is the DSLR dead? And the answer is usually no, that's stupid. But at this time, It is.
Kinda.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
But no, I think just everything's kind of crazy right now where things are getting cut of like it's not necessarily bad, but the landscape is changing and it's not done yet.
No, it is still in flight. So anything that we discuss today, I mean, who knows, right? It could totally
You
change.
watch this a couple months from now. Actually, this will be interesting. Watch this a couple months from now. Tell us in the comments what has changed from what we talk about today. That'll be an interesting.
Please be better.
Oh dear Lord, please be better. So yeah, what do you think? How is kind of the landscape for photographers and video people changed?
Well, beyond the obvious of like, during the shutdowns, a lot of things were either delayed or canceled entirely. I work in tech at the moment and intend to continue to do so for the indefinite future. That makes in the moment made me seem like I was about to jump, but I'm really not. But yeah, I work in tech, and the thing that I've noticed that's interesting about this photography sphere, video sphere there is there's like even more of a need for it because so many people in that sphere have moved remote, and you lose something moving remote. There are lots of positives to going remote, and I benefit from that a lot. But
your commute is about however long it takes to go from your bedroom to the hallway. Yeah,
exactly. So that's very good. There are lots of good things. Saving a lot of money is great. All that's great, but there's some emotional connections that you lose talking through a screen. And a lot of that I feel like has been not replaced, but there's a big attempt to compensate for that by including more imagery, whether that's imagery of employees or a lot of stock imagery or people shooting video on their phones, often vertically, unfortunately, for those of us that are editing it. But there's a lot of like crowdsourced imagery happening.
I have a confession. This week I shot a vertical video.
Unacceptable.
I'm sorry.
Unacceptable.
I will do penance.
Well, I mean, as long as it's for the web, I guess I will.
I'm sorry. No, please continue.
But yeah, I see a lot of this kind of crowdsourcing happening. Now, this is not, professionally shot photography for a lot of this crowdsourced stuff. It's asking employees, it's asking
who's got an
people,
iPhone,
like,
please send in a photo.
Take some photos, take some videos. But that's being augmented by a lot of professional stuff. In my experience, a huge increase in the consumption of stock photography and stock video. But there's lots of things that are being produced internally, and I feel like a lot of this stuff is being like, we had this sort of shift, I feel like, where companies move to like outsource a lot of their photo and video needs.
Oh, absolutely.
And at least in my perspective, granted, I'm only one person, I feel like a lot of that's coming back. Like, there's more plans to bring production back in-house because it's frankly, it can be a lot easier. If you have a photographer on hand full time, if they need to go and do something or you need something, you don't have to coordinate with an outside source anymore that might have other uses for their time. And so having a photographer in-house or videographer in-house for streaming and stuff can be very beneficial. Since a lot of this stuff is remote, you're seeing things where you need to coordinate streams, you need to coordinate videos, you need to put out lots of learning material that you used to do in person, like in a classroom-esque setting. And all of that is still needed, and that needs to be to a high degree of production quality so that the message is heard and people learn and all that kind of fun stuff. And remote, that has been a huge challenge. I have been personally part of efforts to improve remote production, both in-house and coordinating with external photographers, and that is very difficult, and it's not a solved problem, but we were trying to solve it. So yeah, and streams, huge increase in streams, as you might imagine.
Oh,
obviously, the normal, like, virtual meetings, but also the true one-to-many streams where a higher level manager or C-suite executive or whatever is talking to employees through a stream, and those used to be done in person. I mean, oftentimes they would have a partner stream, but now it's all stream all the time, and we're kind of straining under the weight of the production needs for that. So it's a really interesting time. I could see a lot more. Now, this could go totally the opposite of what I'm saying, but I could see a lot more in-house stuff being spun up. due to the convenience and the ease of being able to point a photographer or videographer at a problem whenever you want.
I have before we kind of pivot to outside of the big corporations, how much of that do you think is going towards bringing photographers in-house or people to make media? And how much of that do you think is just eliminating that position entirely and relying on non-professionals to provide all of the photo and video for the media that they're using? Because everyone has an iPhone.
Yeah. I think it's a mix. I think it's the majority of it right now. I'm seeing probably 60-40, maybe 70-30 of non-professional to professionally produced content. But that there is a need for higher and higher quality content. I'm seeing more of a pushback in this space from of the perspective of like, yeah, okay, so we had to do that for a while, and that was fine. Like we had the tools that we had available, but we really need to step this up and do better and higher quality stuff. And I am, even in my narrow sphere, I'm personally seeing spinning up internal production spaces again, bringing employees for that specific use. So it's a mixture, but I am hopeful that internal photographic talent will continue to increase in over time. Because I think those were some of the glory days of photography, at least for those of us that didn't want to do like portraits or weddings, is you had in-house photographers. Like, my dad retired from Boeing, and he was a photographer in-house for Boeing doing scientific stuff. And that was a really cool, different way of approaching photography, and a different type of photographer that would do that.
Absolutely.
And that, a lot of that was outsourced. And so a lot of that was just totally kind of eliminated inside the company, which really sucked. And I know that there were, issues with that, not just from the employees, but the company having to coordinate like all this extra managerial and coordination effort, right, to get anything done. If you got somebody in house, then it's way easier. So I'm hoping that we see a shift back toward that kind of stuff. But, with remote work, who knows? I mean, some
That's
stuff
true.
just has to be shot in person straight up. So there's
it
only
is
so much.
very hard
there's
to
only so much
shoot a
you can do.
headshot over
Yeah.
Zoom.
yeah, not so good. So that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. Granted, that's, totally subject to change, but I'm seeing a need for high quality, and that need increasing over time. So we'll see what happens, but it's encouraging. At least in my narrow slice of the world, it's encouraging. Yeah.
Well, I can talk a little bit about my half fit because I have zero experience inside a corporation. Well, for the past however long this has been going on, you've been waking up and doing meetings and kind of working within a team. I wake up and go, cool, what am I doing today? And of course, there's I still have client meetings. I still have client requests. I just fired off basically all of the stuff that people over the holidays weren't going to be their Christmas card, but they're like, you know what, I'm tired. Let's wait until 1st of January to start looking at those galleries again. So it's funny because right now my balance sheet is ridiculously down, but I'm paying for in January for all the stuff they bought in December. So that's just fact of life. But jobs have definitely dried up in kind of like the private area when you're not working for a big company. The summer of 2020 was going to be the most weddings I've shot in a single summer. Yay.
Thanks, COVID.
They are starting to come back. That's for sure. People are getting vaccinated.
People are only waiting so long.
I know. People are getting vaccinated. People are getting their boosters. People are just kind of coming to terms with the fact that this is never going away and kind of trying to sweep it under the rug. One of the things that is going to be 100% in my studio is basically whenever anyone comes over, there's going to be temperature checks, and there's my hand sanitation station at the door. That's just like a fact of life now, because I'm not a big company, but like I have to keep my clients and anyone who comes over safe. I need to make sure that we're all staying safe in this crazy world. I don't really want to move to doing Zoom sales, because there is something here. Let me just grab a book. There is something nice and tactile about touching an album and flipping through an album and actually seeing that book in person that you just don't get over a Zoom meeting. Like when I'm trying to describe what's the difference between a metal and an acrylic, in person, you're just like, oh, that's a metal, that's an acrylic. I get it. But over a TV screen, I'm holding it. Are you seeing the reflection just right? Is that making sense to you? Do you let me? No, that's not. So in person, especially for kind of like private sales, I feel like essential to kind of stay safe.
Yeah.
When it comes to kind of what I think the landscape looks like, it's funny because a lot of my friends, especially my friends who are DJs, not photographers, they're actually reorienting. They need money, so they're working on CAD or graphic design or web development.
Oh boy.
And just like, you know what? I've been a DJ for a long time, but I didn't get any weddings and I need to feed my family. And I'm seeing that with a few photographers as well, although I'm seeing some people pick up photography as the alternative to the job they lost. So I feel like that's an interesting dynamic. Some photographers are dropping out because they couldn't get any clients. I'm going to be honest, I came kind of close to that. I made like $7,000 one year when I should have made a lot more than that of just like everything disappeared because there were people didn't feel safe, especially kind of the early beginnings.
I mean, there was a total lockdown for a while where nobody was doing anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was illegal to do a lot of stuff for a few months.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was I feel like people are getting safe and having more knowledge and understanding, and these things are starting to come back, and we need to do it kind of in a safe way. And it's not to say that all the jobs are gone, because they're not. But I think what's happening is jobs are coming back that aren't necessarily the same ones. So all the weddings are coming back, but all of the weddings are coming back in budget form. They're not looking for 14 hours of coverage. They're looking for 5 to 6.
Well, and I think we're also seeing demographic shifts at the same time, where not only did COVID kind of delay everything and people's, belts have to be tightened financially a lot of the time, we're also seeing a shift from, now it's more and more millennials and older Zoomers that are getting married nowadays, and like a lot of them don't have as much money as previous generations.
Absolutely
so
not.
Yeah, it's kind of a double whammy, I feel like, of a bad situation.
One of the things I would like to say by the time this airs, but I think it'll probably be in the week or two following. I do video work, and video work is not really a thing that I advertise, but I've been working over COVID to come out with, we've been working on it together actually, to come out with a brand new reel. We are currently one shot away from releasing that into the public. The other 99% is done. I just have a placeholder title card saying insert shot here. But yeah, so doing more video, doing more product work. As early pandemic, there was a brewery, Lucky Envelope Brewing. I will actually link to the tutorial that I did for the products down in the description for this podcast. But yeah, I did a tutorial on kind of how to get the invisible mannequin look, because I was shooting a whole range of product photography for them, because they legally could not have people in their establishment. They couldn't sell their beer, so they started selling merch, t-shirts and hats and stickers and stuff. And then eventually they were labeled okay to, open and go, and then labeled okay to okay, half capacity, all of that stuff. But there was a boom in the early part of pandemic of my wife sews, and she was sewing masks nonstop for 3 months. And it was kind of boring because masks aren't that hard, but there was the new demand. So I think if you're a photographer and you're out there and you're losing business, you can try and get that business back, but don't smash your head into the wall. I think what are the things that are in your skill set that you can kind of shift and pivot to. So I used to tell people 50% of my income comes from weddings and 50% comes from everything else. But going forward, I don't know if that's still going to be true. There might be a lot more video work. There might be a lot more product work. So Yeah, that's kind of where I think things are going. It's
agree.
starting to get a little more clear, but it's still kind of an uncertain picture.
Yeah, the singular the singular I only do X genre of photography person, I think, is a very rare breed. Maybe totally going extinct at this point. Like this diversification. I mean, this is diversification, right? Like
It
what we're
is.
doing right now is something that theoretically a photographer wouldn't need to do unless they really wanted to.
Hey,
I mean,
and
this
guess
is the way to
what?
do it.
For those of you listening, this podcast is absolutely free. But if you would like to help us monetize it, you can go to our Patreon. It is patreon.com/nomcreative, as in om nom nom. Right now, the tier we have is $1. It's a tip jar. Just tell us that you like these episodes. And back to the show. Thank you for listening to our sponsored message from me.
Diversification. This episode is brought to you by
Me!
this episode. Yeah, so that's something that I'm seeing a lot too. I started off in my career kind of intending to go into like film and I briefly explored going to Hollywood and that sort of stuff, and I just
You had like TV news media.
yeah, I didn't really penciling it out, I didn't feel confident that I was going to be able to make it work, and that was pre-COVID. And so I did this other direction and I got into tech and did more web design and increasingly now graphic design and that sort of stuff. So I got very much into the design field, and
But still very multimedia.
yeah, still very
videos type.
multimedia for
Yeah.
sure. But that's how I diversified, and I have stuck with that ever since. But yeah, I feel like that's a good way to go. I mean, if you're in a creative field, if you are a photographer and you feel like, what do I do? Like, I feel like you've got more options than you think. You've got a
Absolutely.
creative eye. You've got a ability there that can cross-pollinate with other skills.
Yeah.
And you just need to try those skills and feel out what you think you should do.
Absolutely. I think that is kind of a good place to wrap up our conversation. So for those of you listening, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, Stuart, how can they send in their questions?
hello@photo-op.show.
Yeah, go ahead and email us, and we'll be answering a listener question at the top of every episode. If we start to get a backlog, wouldn't that be a fun problem to have? If we start to get a backlog of questions, then we might just do a question episode. But yeah, we are going to try and get through all of your listener questions. So thank you guys so much. Stay tuned for the next one, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us this week for our diversification.
If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@photo-op.show.
Watch us on Ben's YouTube channel at Non-Creative.
As in om nom nom.
Share this with a friend, and you can listen to Photo Op anywhere podcasts are sold.
Or download it. 'Cause it's free.